Jason, I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be great.
Me too, Bill. Thank you for the chat.
You're one of my favorite people in real estate, and I think one of the benefits of being in Trek is you get to meet people like you see and hear about. And I've had such a great respect for what you guys have accomplished. I know your partner. I knew your Dan before I knew you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I'm kind of been really looking forward to this.
Yeah, and Dan thinks the world of you. So I'm glad you and I have got to know each other a little better over the last couple of years here. So it's been a lot of fun.
I need to get Dan to tell Cawley that I'm a good guy.
All right.
So give everybody a little bit of background on your family, kids, story a little bit.
So my wife and I grew up in Galveston, so I married my high school sweetheart, and so that's been fun. We've been here in the Dallas area since the late 90s. Dan and I actually met in the late 90s and did a .com business, and so we went boom and bust during the .com craze in the late 90s.
Dan was involved in that too?
He was, yeah. So he had recruited
me. It's good to hear that he has some misses. I've never seen him miss yet.
He had the year Big Mouth Billy Bass Fish the same year. So he had a pretty good year, pretty good hedge. And then I joined Gemmy and was president of Gemmy Industries for about the last 10 years. And Gemmy's the company that made Big Mouth Billy Bass. It also makes all those inflatables you see on people's yards for Halloween and Christmas. And Carrie and I have 3 kids that are now 21, 19, and 16. So yeah, we're blessed to be here. We live in the Capel area, so we love it.
So how do you go from inflatables to furniture?
Yeah, Dan is really a product genius, I would say, and he founded Gemmy Industries back in 1985. And so really the leading consumer products powerhouse of Christmas and Halloween product if you're at a Lowe's, Home Depot, or Walmart. And he's standing there with back pain one day and standing in a cardboard box back in 2012, go all the way back. So he and I would, I'd walk into his office and he's standing up and, just trying to figure out what was wrong, and couldn't find a solution for him. He was ordering products online and dreamt up one night an idea for a product, and Dan's pretty good at products.
But so like when he was looking for products online, products to alleviate back pain, or were you focused on the desk?
A standing desk.
Got it, standing desk.
He went to his doctor, and she said, well, if you feel better standing up, you should stand up more. That was literally the prescription. And so he stood up more and felt a little better, and couldn't find a desk online. They would take weeks to deliver. These crazy boxes and contraptions would show up, and Dan and I would try to assemble them. It was a joke. And then he dreamt up the product, and he started talking about it and describing it. And so I grabbed one of our designers, David Patton, and David joined us, and the 3 of us sat around Dan's classic desk like every executive had, 8 or 10 years ago. And he said, what if you could slide out of the box and grab the handles and just stand up? And David started to sketch mechanisms, and over a 2-hour period sketched up what ultimately became the prototype for the Varidesk.
So tell me that's not an example of somebody seeing something and not just having a thought and moving on, but having the self-confidence or the gumption to see a void in a need in the market and doing it.
Yeah, we always talk about pain points that are out there, and you see friction and pain points everywhere in business. And so this pain point happened to be a literal one for Dan's back pain, but then also the pain point, we couldn't find a product solution, couldn't get one affordable, couldn't get an easy one, didn't have a logical solution. And so I think that entrepreneurial spirit of why not try it, build it, test it, what's the worst case scenario?
Yeah, but I mean, so many people, I think the difference between the people that kind of get where you've gotten or where you're heading, and kind of just living maybe a bland or normal life, is the people that have an idea or see a need and have the confidence to go see if they can fill it, right? Even if they fail, right? But it's the people that take action is what makes, our country so good. But it's just, I just think, it kind of drives me crazy because I am constantly trying to be cutting edge. I want to be new and different. There's risk in that, right? Mm-hmm. And there was risk in what you did, but it started a whole industry that you're in that you would have never thought about.
Right. Yeah, I think, you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit, which I believe is really the lifeblood of our economy. And it does take risk, but there's huge rewards when it works, but also grit and determination, also a willingness to try and fail and learn. When we had that first prototype, we showed it to our employees, and some loved it. They're like, oh my God, I feel better. But that's one thing to say it to me, I'm president of the company. It's another thing for us to take it outside the four walls and hit the battlefield of commerce. And so we drove it around here in Dallas, and this is a great place to ideate and create products on a local level to test and learn. There's so many great companies here. So somebody that knew the president of Verizon and got us a meeting. That was literally our first presentation. And, the night before I'm laying there, I'm like, what the hell am I going to say to Pedro? I don't even know this gentleman. He's so nice to take the meeting. And I said, well, at the end of the day, we're trying to create a happier, healthier, more productive workspace. And we literally walked in with that presentation and said, I think we can transform lives through product. And we talked to him, and he had no idea what we were talking about. Sitting was not the new smoking. He just had never heard of all these terms that were coming out literally at that moment. But for us to get feedback and for him to be open enough to bring in his ergonomist, to bring in his head of people in HR, for them to give us feedback, for us to be open and willing to learn and listen, allowed us to tweak the product. But you're right, it takes the desire to get that action started, but it also takes the willingness to listen, to show your idea, to nurture it along, to get that feedback, to fail, craft it, and get back up and do it again.
To carry through. So like when, I wonder sometimes when you ask people for their opinion of a product that they know you're pitching, if they tell you the truth. I once invested in a restaurant and told no one that I did. And I would take people to the restaurant and I would ask for their feedback. And I think it's the only time I ever really got true feedback. And there was plenty of negativity that came out, but the negative is what you want, right? Mm-hmm. You want what they really think.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of times people won't just be transparent with you because they risk, I don't know why, they don't have faith in a relationship, or when really all you want is tell me where I can make this better, right? Mm-hmm. So you go from that to, what did you know about furniture? I mean, how do you build an organization? I mean, how do you go from a stand-up desk to what's happened? I mean, did you go find somebody in the industry to bring in, or have you just figured it out as you went along?
No, definitely figured it out as we went along. Didn't know anything about the furniture industry. That. I think we only knew about it
because you didn't want to go the way they were going, right? You wanted to be new and different.
Well, I didn't know any better. It was sheer ignorance on my part. And so, but I knew how to open up companies and build product, and I've bought furniture for myself before, and we had bought it, for Jemmy and other businesses. And so the idea of how to get it, it was more about, okay, so as we just learned, we started showing it, the product, and people started to buy it. And Dan and I joked we'd never do another .com business together after we went bust. But for $99, we built a website on 3D Cart, set up QuickBooks, had a real simple setup, ordered some products, started selling them online, doing some Google ads. And then recognizing that the furniture industry was kind of in an antiquated industry. And I didn't realize this till we showed up at NeoCon at the trade show in Chicago, which is the biggest office furniture show in the world. And they said, well, you have to sell through a dealer. You have to do it this way. You have to advertise in a catalog. And I'm like, nobody advertises in a catalog. You don't pay for that. You have to list and discount the furniture at least 50%. And I said, well, Amazon,
so mark it up double, then discount it half.
At least. And so they call it list and discount. And it just became how the vernacular of that industry, it was very antiquated and didn't make any sense. And so we just said, well, could we do it a different way?
And did they buck you? They probably, you wanted to just put a price, do it your way. Did they fight you?
Yeah, a little bit. And so we didn't, we tried to sell through the dealers at first, and they would sell one or two in a week. And our website was selling 3 a day, was a big order. It was $1,000 in a day. And we were like, oh my goodness, we're onto something big here. And we started to listen to the customer. And, we got lucky. We did the logical, thing, which seems obvious today, but, we were sitting there, and this is when Wi-Fi wasn't on every airplane, and we're sitting there on an airplane and trapped on a tarmac for 4 hours. And it was really, again, maybe a blessing from God. We're flipping through a Sky Mall magazine, and we're like, wouldn't it be funny if we advertised in Sky Mall, somebody standing up because we couldn't get up? So, okay, sure. So we did it. We reached out to Sky Mall. At the last minute, they had an ad spot for a remnant ad. We paid $25,000 for 3 months and became the #1 selling item in Sky Mall's history overnight. And so you suddenly have people tearing out a page of a magazine in an airplane and calling you and saying, I've got to get one of these. But what ultimately we had done is provided a fantastic product direct to the customer, listened to the customer and learned. And that's how we've gotten it. And the beauty of the internet today is you get feedback raw.
Totally.
So they're going to write a review about you, whether it's on your reviews about your product, whether you as a CEO are going to get written up on salary.com or Glassdoor. The reality is there's information out there. And so we got all that feedback, improved the product, continue to make it better and better, and started to sell a lot of product. And suddenly $1,000 a day became 10,000, 100,000, even days well over $1 million a day, which is incredible to think that we could facilitate that. But because I had failed before, I realized we could also have these growing pains, which I always joke are much more fun than shrinking pains. So we started to manage it and started to figure it out, hire really great people to join the team early on. Spun off the company in 2013 to be a standalone business so that it didn't kill Jemmy on accident, and let it go.
What about shift from a stand-up desk to a manufacturing furniture? I mean, was that just because of the volume, or when did you kind of decide, hey, this is not a one-trick pony, we're going to get into this business?
What happened, we leased some space for ourselves across the street and had a standalone business. And we're like every company, we're growing fast, we're hiring talent. So we built some walls that move. We had always, for 15 plus years, had walls that could move, so that at Jemmy we could change up the space. We just hated the idea that sheetrock gets tossed in a landfill all the time.
Agree with it too.
And and Dan had owned a couple million square feet of real estate here in Dallas and said, I hate it every 5 years. We're ripping out all these walls, tossing them in a landfill and putting them back up 2 feet over from where they were last time. Mm-hmm. Let's create a flexible space. So we put walls up. We started doing standing conference tables because standing meetings happen faster. And then we welcomed people to visit us in Capel. They would tour our office and say, well, I want all of this. And they would be circling. And what they were talking about was the energy and the culture of the space. And that's how we got into more and more products. It was listening to the fans. They literally said, do you have anti-fatigue mats? Do you have monitor arms? Can we buy electric desks from you? We want to buy your walls. We want to buy your lights, all from touring our headquarters. They pulled us along the journey versus us forcing it down their throat. So having that authentic relationship with the customer and being totally transparent and them learning with you allowed us to sell and earn the right to sell more and more products out there.
Okay, so what's the hardest part of your job day to day?
Well, I think, at the end, you think about we're in the people business. So we're recruiting talent. Today's market's crazy. We're retaining talent. We're growing. We've been faced with tremendous growing pains. And I had joked early on, I said, if I was 25 years old, I would have crashed this thing because I wouldn't have surrounded myself with an amazing leadership team. I wouldn't have invested at the time in the infrastructure and the technology or the new products in the pipeline. So constantly managing that, I've got to prove too, as a CEO, can I prove that I can go from 0 to 1 million, 0 to hundreds of millions? Can I build $1 billion plus brand out there? We've driven billions of dollars in sales overall since we've started the company. But as a CEO, there's very few that can take it all the way. And so I've got to continue. I wake up, like I say, broke every day, and I've got to earn every day. So I've got to do my job, lead my team with, especially right now, empathy, love, and grace through these crazy times that we're in. But navigate that and prove that I can do it. And so that's probably the hardest thing, is realizing there's 300 plus families that rely on the decisions I make every day.
In business, I think momentum is awesome. And when you have it, you got to keep it, right? losing momentum and trying to go get it back is so hard, right? Because you have a culture where everything's thriving. And we've all seen businesses or organizations that had lots of momentum and they just couldn't handle it, or they couldn't keep it going. And it just seems like you guys have handled the momentum really, really well. I mean, you just keep, and I love that the answer is just listening to what they're telling you they want. It's awesome.
Yeah, I think, we've been blessed to, you build a product that goes on top of a desk. So in your mind, at some point you run out of desks, right? We have millions of units all over the world that have been sold, and probably over 4 or 5 million units now of the Varidesk, the original. And obviously hundreds of knockoffs and other companies have come out with other desktop converters. Well, that has an innovation life cycle to it over time, but we pushed into a new category. Could we transform the way people think about workspaces? Could we elevate people and cultures through workspace design? Could we bring other products that are around health and wellness into the workspace? Could we do that? We had to, one, simplify our name because the term desk didn't matter anymore. And so what do? We had to elevate the brand. I'd never done that before. We had to elevate our product offering, our technology offering. So again, making those bets and those pushes into that. We also recognize in sales, and you know this very well, it's about the relationship and the trust that you build.
Totally.
So not only on the product side, we've got to earn it, but on the relationship. So now to hire outside salespeople, so I'm in almost 14 different markets now across the country, and that's all been done during COVID, to hire salespeople that can help us build the brand and the relationships in these markets. And so all those are challenges, but I believe long term in what we're doing there.
But you're not hiring. You're not hiring a typical person that would work for another furniture company. In most cases, you're hiring people new to your industry because you don't want.
It's a little bit of both.
Got it.
It's, you've got people that have
now.
seen the industry and they see a better way, and they're like, wow, this is so simple. There's less than 300 products. It's flexible. The walls move. You think about, we do free space planning and design, and we do free installation, and we come in, we'll reconfigure your space for a fee. It's about thinking about the future of workspace. That's very different than the traditional model. So people that are in the traditional model are attracted to come over and say, wow, you're like Tesla. You're the new version of the industry, and I've been working at Chevrolet forever.
Yeah, so
let's come over and do that. I've got people that are brand new, that are coming in and are entering the industry just like we all do in the next generation. So I'm excited to have them because they're all about the future of work. They've seen visuals of what Google and Facebook look like online, their headquarters. That's kind of what we think about product.
I think you and Dan are such a good team because Dan, minutia wears him out, right? He's so creative. He's very, very smart.
Yep.
And he's got conviction, right? When he sees opportunities, he does it. He gets after it. Because, he sees the desks. Now he's looking at real estate going, finish out can be different. And I think you're onto something. I definitely know that you're right. Because as a developer, I want to be different and innovative too. And I think somewhere in the middle, this is all going to work out. Because I keep thinking, I don't want to emulate what you're doing, but ripping out office walls every couple years is not the answer. I don't know where we're going to all end up, but I want to build I want to do what you're doing, but I want to build a new building that's got flexible interior wall space that just to try it, and just see. But I just think it's so invigorating or cool to see you guys changing. You guys are change agents for the real estate business. Started with in furniture, you've done it. Now you're getting into real estate.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. And when I think we toured that Zales building way back, and it was up for auction, and to see an asset that was beautiful in its heyday and award winning in the 80s, and then for it to sit neglected for 6 years, and for us to go in and thank God Jeff Lamb was here and the Corrigan team and Structure Town were awesome. But to come in and reimagine what that could be and bring it to life allowed us to test and learn and prove out that could we do it a little different. It allowed us to get into the soft seating line. We weren't into soft seating category, and it forced us into these new categories, and we learned.
Well, and there's real estate like that all over the country. When it gets a little age on it, a little bit dated, a big tenant moves out, everybody just looks at that as risk, and you looked at it as opportunity. Okay, so pandemic hits. What have you learned, or what's changed you as a person, or the pandemic? I've got several things that I think it did for me. I'd love to hear that on a personal side, and also maneuvering through it from a company side.
Yeah, I think the impact. COVID hit right as we did the rebrand from Varidesk to Vari, and we had just hired 50 salespeople in these markets. And I think, like everybody, I thought it'd be over in a few weeks, and it wasn't.
Me too.
So I went into.
I was thinking 90 days.
I had some very sleepless nights, and so I started daily emails to the team of really what was on my mind, and it forced me to be a much more open communicator. I'm quite introverted, and even though it doesn't seem like it, but I am, and I forced myself to just say what was on my mind, in my heart, how I was feeling. Because it was pretty sleepless nights. I was trying to navigate it. We pivoted in a few days to a work from home environment for our customer base. So we literally switched our TV ads to say work from home, 10% discount, which I just don't believe in discounting, like try to keep everyday value from a pricing standpoint. So I did things I wasn't comfortable with on the business side. Also, I started weekly Zoom calls with all 300 employees and just started to talk about everything that was on my mind. And so it forced me to be a much stronger communicator with the team. The crisis did create clarity. And so we were able to lean into it and focus our resources. The work from home, our business pivoted from 90% corporate to 90% shipments went to people's homes. Our electric desk blew up. Thank God awesome. We were in stock. Thank God we were considered an essential business.
Could you keep the supply chain up with your orders?
We were in a great spot. And then while people were out, we transformed our headquarters. We did distance-based design, things that I saw were happening in Asia before the CDC came out with guidelines. We learned. We did almost 1,000 offices during COVID where we transformed their spaces. So those were things I think that we did on the tactical side. On the personal side, I just had to lean on, really, I leaned into meditation and some other things around health and wellness. I think that were very good for me on a personal level, and read some incredible books just to try to, on stoicism and the obstacle is the way, Ryan Holiday, just to try to clear my head and mind, because there were just so many moving parts to really focus on what are the priorities going to be today? What can I control? What can I not control? And that allowed us, and I think the team. The last thing I'll say is that we rallied around a single rallying cry, which a friend of mine had said during the SARS heyday, we're going to keep rowing until the wind catches our sails. And that became like our daily push, that everybody knew that we're still rowing, and that eventually the wind would catch our sails and that we would get through this storm together. And that became a rallying cry that I think resonated with a lot of us. And it still resonates with me every day.
Well, and it ended up being pretty much a positive for your business, right? It thrived, right?
It's been good.
Okay, and so how did your family do through COVID? I mean, did you see any issues, or how'd your kids do, your wife? I mean, everybody just kind of buckle up and get through it, or
I think
fear?
I think there was human nature fear. Our oldest was down at Baylor, and they all came home, and then the kids were alone and isolated, and I think that was tough.
Too much isolation.
Yeah. And I think we started to talk about mental health and those types of things with whether it was employees, their loved ones, our families, just to make sure that everybody was okay, and trying to, because I did think the isolation was very hard on people to be away from their friends and loved ones. And so those were things that I think that we've now seen the benefit of. I was blessed that we kind of all got to be together last summer, which was nice, and you got some of the benefits from it that were really.
I think what I got was balance. I have always been and I'm a lot older than you are, but in my generation, it was all work, right? And it was drive, and you want to accomplish things, and so many people would put their personal lives on hold to go build their career, and they think they can go back, and you never really know if you can go put that back together, and or you never know how long your health's going to last, et cetera. But I've always been very driven, right? But I think what I got out of it was balance. I mean, to where having a nice dinner with my kids just became more important. Taking a walk with my wife and talking and more intimacy with my wife, just instead of going from one fire to the next. I think not over committing on my personal side and my business side, and I really like it. It's I think I've cut out chaos. I mean, it's still there because I'm the biggest generator of chaos in my life, but I think I'm more healthy balanced than I had before.
Well, I think you did a great job, really. I think for you and I probably kicked off the second phase of our relationship, and to see what you did with Trek and the community and getting the CEOs on the call where we could all get on, and you leaning into South Dallas and helping push through some of those things with Linda and our team inspired me and I'm not that much younger than you, I'm 51, but to inspire people like me that know that we've got to continue to do our part to lead and share and do the right thing. And so I think that was a great thing I learned from you. So I appreciate you doing that.
You know, one of the things as I get older, I think giving is better than getting. It just is. It feels better. Okay, so you got a kid coming out of college that's looking for advice. Like I get them all the time. And one of the things I'm committed to is these kids that are graduating, just looking for direction, right? And you say they want to be in the real estate business, or they want to be in your business, whatever it is. You're kind of in both businesses. And I always try to be really honest with them, right? Just not give them lip service and pass them down to the next guy, but actually be honest and try to get involved. What would your advice be for a kid getting into business today on career, et cetera? What do you think are the must-haves or the important parts?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. One, it's finding a place where you can learn and grow. And so I think you are looking for either companies or organizations that have common values and leaders that you can learn from.
Totally agree.
The second thing I think is impact. And where do you think that ultimately you can have the most impact? Early in your career, your impact may be very tiny, but you want to have a place where your impact is valued and the work that you're working on is meaningful. And so whether you get that from the career pieces or the volunteers or the organizations that you can join, but building those relationships early on. I also just say bring in your whole self to it. And so there's people that say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I just want to do something. You can be an entrepreneur inside an organization. You can have that entrepreneur and drive those, because that's what entrepreneurs and CEOs want, is people that treat it like it's their own money, that bring all of that to the table. And if you can make a little money and have fun along the way, it makes it extra juice for it. But getting those first three things right is how I always think about it.
Grit, passion, just be committed, but also I think you have to respect the people you're with, right? Yeah. I don't know how I a couple times early in my career, I worked for people that I grew to not respect. And
life's too short.
Right. And I got out of there, but I didn't get out of there as quick as I should have. And I also think, in life, one of the things I've learned too is if you see something that's not working, fix it as fast as you can with empathy, right? Yeah.
I think, and you've got to trust this gut. Whether it's God, your gut, whatever this thing is, I can't. Every time I've not trusted it, it's gone wrong for me.
I totally agree.
Every time. And so I think I always tell them, whatever you feel, that energy that you feel right there, what the right decision is. You know what you should be doing.
Trust your gut.
Trust it.
I think your gut is God. I do
too.
And I think God's given you the intuition to guide you, right? And it's about just listening to God or your gut. And every time I haven't done it,
me too.
It's been a mess.
Me too.
Okay, how about biggest mistake? Business mistake.
Biggest business mistake, the .com was a tough one just because we had built an unprofitable business model and we had raised capital like everybody. And so.
And did you know you were fighting an uphill battle there? Or, I mean,
think everybody in their mind was doing .coms the same way in 1999. It was get revenue at all cost and don't worry about anything else. And when the cash ran out, everybody got wiped out. And we just didn't have a profitable business model. I've failed in the restaurant business, arguably.
Were you invested, or you were actually?
I used to own a restaurant and nightclub down in Houston, and we did okay. It wasn't great.
Did you like it?
Oh yeah, it was good.
Yeah,
but it wasn't my calling, and so I think that's where you recognize where if it's not your calling,
right,
you're in the wrong place, and so you're not adding the value. So those are probably the easier business ones. I've done plenty of mistakes out there.
Have you ever had anybody give you bad advice? Worst advice?
No, I don't know that I have worst advice. I'd have to think about that, Bill. Yeah, I think, I've had people, I've chased what I call pyrite, where I chase what I think is going to be money, fool's gold on
But that's
ideas.
part about being an entrepreneur, right?
I think it's more, but not. It's just going back to not trusting my gut when I kind of knew it was a false,
right?
Like something wasn't right. And at the end of the day, it's not about the money.
Ever. It should never be about the money. So like every time I have gotten out of my fairway, it's not a disaster, but it's just not effective, right?
And it's not fun.
And as you get older, you kind of realize this is really where I belong.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as I stay on that path, I'm great. And because it's weird, because when I was younger, bigger and more was really important. And today it's doing it right and doing it with quality and integrity. Mm-hmm. And now if that leads to a lot, that's great, but it biggest doesn't make it better.
Right.
Do you agree?
No, I think I look at it like it's impact. And so what is the best way to have impact today? I always look at it like at 51, if I'm blessed to have another 49 here, what are the years I can have impact? What are the things that through my kids and through the people I mentor or the business people that I associate with, what's the positive impact that I can have on their lives so the ripple effect will continue on beyond my lifetime, and trying to think of it as a bigger journey than just this brief moment of time that we're here. Is kind of how I think about things.
So like in 97, I was in an accident and I'm laying in the ditch thinking I'm dying, and all the stuff that was important became irrelevant, and all the stuff I've been putting off in my life became really important. And I think it's a blessing to get to that point as soon as you can in your life, because you kind of realize what's really important. It's about people and relationships, and all that stuff's a lot more important than money. Like the day I stopped chasing money is when I started making it. Like when I started just servicing my customer or doing what my passion was, then the money will follow, right? And everybody I've ever seen that follows money or is solely focused on money, I've seen them have success, but there's a lot of misery with it, I think.
Yeah, I think the idea of I try to simplify everything, and so I think about
it's got to be simple for me.
Yeah, but also too, I think when I start to notice things that cause me anxiety, I used to joke and I used to go in my closet and it would cause me anxiety. So I, in my late 30s, decided to just simplify my wardrobe and just wear black every day because that seemed to be simple, and so it literally reduced anxiety and stress.
Love that.
And I was about 20 pounds overweight, and I wasn't sleeping well. And and I was traveling to Asia all the time. And my doctor said, well, give up some stuff. So I gave up drinking, and I lost 20 pounds in a little over a month. I quit snoring at night. Which
that means you were drinking.
Yeah.
You were good at it then.
And it was, but I felt better. And so for me, reducing things that cause distraction also unnecessary things.
But that takes discipline, right?
Oh, it
I
does.
mean,
Yeah.
you can. There's a lot of people that get told what you got told that go, I'm not doing that.
Right. But I think recognizing as soon as you get a benefit out of it, and whatever those things are, and keep marching down the path there, I think helps a lot. And again, I agree with you as you think about the relationship. So if you start studying Buddhism and the presence, and you're a very good connector of people. And so, but not everybody can make somebody feel that engaged or know that you're all in to have this conversation. I'm here to help you. Like I'm genuinely here to help you. And so us as a society trying to find ways to do that. And it's probably one at a time. It's each person making that candle, lighting it up for somebody else. But if we can each continue to do that, I think the ripple effect can be tremendous. So, but we have to lead by example as leaders, as parents, as loved ones, with our relationships, with our family, with the other executives that we interact with, and with our team members. And if you can show that, I think that ripple effect can be really, really positive out there.
Well, I think if you're not real or genuine, they figure it out really fast. And usually the person that's not real or genuine is the last one to figure out that they're not kidding anybody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think being real and just being genuine about who you are is win one, right, in life. And the thing I learned, like when I was a kid, that used to frustrate me in business was I had relationships, but none of them had any influence, right? We're at an age now, and where you are at in your business, where everybody we know has influence, right? And so you realize that it's so much more about relationships than it is anything, because if you've been genuine in your relationships, when you need them, they're there for you because they have faith in you, right? They just trust you.
Yep.
And the guys that are full of baloney, they know that there's nothing there for them. I just think, if like I tell my kids, drive, and I don't think you can. They have to have that, right?
Yeah,
they got
the work ethic, the grit, the drive. You gotta have
right.
it. That's the
But
basic.
being genuine and real is totally at their control, right?
Well, when I think it was Mike Oblong was talking about the relationships you build early on, and then you're focusing on revenue in these weird chapters of your life, and at the different part of your career, you realize that at the end of the day, it's about the relationships and the impact. And so that resonated with me. I've worked very hard on that the last few years, especially just recognizing that it's even more important than ever. And so I think I would agree with you. I don't think there's anything out there that says that's not the right way. Ultimately, what we're here to do is serve others.
Well, so good. I think transparency, like I'll say something to somebody that is not really what they want to hear, but they've asked me my opinion, because when I know I'm going to give them an answer that they need to hear, but they probably wouldn't want to hear it. I always just say, okay, you're asking, so I think I owe it to you to tell you what I think. But they always appreciate it, because I just think we owe each other transparency.
Yeah,
and
we
just
describe it as an
real.
Authentic relationship. I mean,
Right.
if you've got an authentic relationship with your friends, I would argue with your fan base or your customers out there,
Totally.
that allows you to earn the right to build. And I describe it as this lifelong fan, this career-long relationship that you as a company can build, your brand, your people through you. It's beyond you, but the impact of the team that you're leading. If you can create that lifelong fan, that authentic relationship with them, and truly be there to serve them, I think it allows your business and your brand to elevate above the fray, and you
Totally
can
agree.
be one of the great ones.
I agree.
That's kind of how I think about it.
Right. Okay, so what opportunity do you see out there in the business world or in the world that no one's taking advantage of? Like where there's something that you go, wow, that's somebody needs to go do something about that.
Yeah, I think we've dabbled in it in a couple areas. One, we think about transforming cultures, and we think about helping people. I think everybody's sort of in this oh, we're going to work from home and be isolated in our boxes forever. And I don't think that that's how the future is going to be. I think the idea of human interaction is going to continue to happen. And so we're going to push really, really hard as we think about the future of what flexible workspaces means, about the seamless integration of technologies that you have, whether you are working from anywhere, working from home, also pushing that back into kids and schools through volunteer programs, all those things. I think that whole convergence is going to be a huge area that I think ultimately will be a healing point for so many people and organizations out there, that they're looking to figure out a way on culture, on impact, on value, on really creating the next generation of entrepreneurs and leaders. I think is all going to be in that space. And we're still early in cracking the code, but I think that's where the space that we're playing in.
Right. I think people are social. People don't want to be isolated at home. Now, I understand that there are some tasks that can easily be done at home versus driving into the office. But I think people want to collaborate. They want to be social. They want to be around people. If I was a young guy and I want to grow in a business, how's my boss going to see what I'm doing if I'm not standing there in front of him?
Yeah.
I mean, I build office buildings, so I want people in buildings just like you do.
Yeah.
But I think the one that's out there that you're onto, that you've put me on, just so you know, is people look at office buildings as an asset class, and they fear them because of the re-tenanting cost. So you go to a multifamily is selling for 3.5 cap, 3% unlevered returns, and they rent them 6 months at a time. Office buildings we're building with 8 and 5 and 10 year leases. I know you're doing shorter term ones, but because of the re-tenanting costs, they're selling at a 7 or 7.5 unlevered return. And I do think if you get that piece figured out, those shorter term leases will work. But I think office, if you could do it even with a longer term lease, with the flexibility of not being fearful of re-tenanting that building, it's going to take it from the most feared to the most desirable.
We think about, so we bought that first Varispace, and then we bought the second one in South Lake. We're building Varispace, Capel, so we could learn, like you were describing, could we build a building of the future? And we're going to learn. We think we'll get hopefully 100% right, but it'll probably be 90 or 80% right, and we'll learn.
It's pretty good if you get there, right?
But I agree with you. So the idea of flexible space inside of an asset allows it to operate just like a business does, just like life does. Your business never goes straight up. Your business doesn't hopefully go straight down. It's a grind. It's an up and down. So space, and it should be just like a canvas and move and ebb and flow with you. So we own these 3 buildings today. We'll have the third one open next summer, but really we're hoping that it becomes an ideation lab for other asset owners. So they're already flying in from all over the world now. But they come here to DFW, and within a day can see all the buildings, see how we're doing it, and then we can start working with them to transform their spaces in other markets. Because I agree with you, and whether it's 2% today or 30% 10 years from now, some percent will be flexible space, some percent will be long term. But even that long term, because we've already started signing some longer term leases. I think you were sort of razzing us in the beginning because we were 2 to 3 year leases, but we've had people now sign 10-year leases with us with Varispace, which we didn't envision, but they love the idea that they can be a part of the energy, again, that we're creating there in the space, and then allows us to learn. So
I think a combination of both is the ideal.
So I think for us, it's working with other asset owners to bring that to other cities and markets, because the idea that business is going to be stagnant and stale isn't going to happen. Are they going to work 3 days a week, 1 day a week somewhere else? I don't know. Every business and culture and team is going to be different. Half the U.S. population doesn't get to work in an office. And so for us, if we can create tools that they can work remote, if they can create tools that they can work from their homes or whatever multifamily that Lucy's going to build up for everybody and create out there, whatever the future of those spaces are going to be, for me, creates more product and opportunities to learn and grow our fan base.
Well, because like you just take my business. So I've been in my space 5 years. I signed a 10-year lease. And the way I occupy my space today, I'm adapting to my space instead of the space fitting my need, right? And everybody does that, right? They do. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think their short-term lease thought was, okay, give them more flexibility, then they don't have to worry about it. But
it was really evergreen tenant improvement. Could we do the bones of the space so well up front that we have less tenant improvement dollars committed every 5 to 10 years when the space turns? So if you said right now I've got 5 years left, but I really need to change this.
Yeah.
Do we have the products or the services between us and these other companies to provide something that you could cost effectively do something fast, maybe without pulling a whole bunch of permits too and just the delays?
Totally.
So could you just, hey, I need to flex up a team room. We just acquired a company. I've got new interns that I want staged here next to the C-suite for the summer. Could we think of space that works for you instead of you working for the space?
Yeah, because I think the piece that's the hardest part is the wall piece, right? And I think your progress is outstanding, and it is. And I think I look forward to how that evolves.
Yep.
But like if I own a building and I have a tenant, I've got a tenant wanting to renew, right? He's trying to get a COVID discount. I go, there is no COVID discount. Right. But then I go, okay, if he moves, what's it going to cost me to re-tenant the space? Because not that the brokers are bad, it's just what they do. They're going to come in and ask for $50, $60 a foot on second generation space, where I can renew this existing tenant for probably 10, right? But it's still all typical. It's not doing what you're doing. But it's amazing because what I've tried to be is just more cognizant of how my mind's working on what I'm working on. And it all comes back to the issues you're working on, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, we're excited. And I think we're still early.
Just got to leave a little bit for us.
Oh, no, it's all there. I think we treat it like we want to work with the asset owners to crack the code. At the end of the day, we're a product innovation company. We own some buildings, but think of them as living, breathing ideation lab showrooms so that we can host tours here in DFW for everybody that's got assets here in this market, but from all over the country and the world, they can come here, and then this can be the experience. So that's why our buildings all look different, feel different, because we're testing, we're learning.
I totally agree.
And that's what we hope to crack the code. But we're also working with a lot of y'all. So we're grateful for that too, because the faster we learn together, I think when I talk about impact,
makes the industry better.
It makes us all better. Right. And it ultimately helps these great entrepreneurs create great companies. That's what we need to be focused on, is help them create great businesses.
Right.
Let's create the canvas for them to create their masterpieces on.
Creates the flexibility they need. Okay, so interests outside of work. You're at home. What do you do when you're not working?
I paint, so I'm not as good as your daughter, but I do paint. So
Kaylee, that's a plug.
So I did.
So what? You're like George Bush. What
I'm not as good as George either, but Mr. President. But I would say Pollock inspired. So we can.
And when did you start?
In the early 90s.
So you've been doing it?
Yeah, I did a little.
So on the weekends, will you paint?
Yeah, do you do it? I did 3 paintings this weekend. I went crazy. I normally don't go that crazy, but my daughter, we took her to college, and I was I think I had a hole in my heart.
Yes.
It was a little tough.
I got this coming this week.
And so, I was laying there, and I just got up early, and I started painting in the garage, and kind of went crazy. And
so you knocked 3 paintings out in a day?
Over the weekend. Yeah.
Over the weekend.
It was probably
over
30 hours.
And when you go in there to paint, do you know what you're going to paint? Have no idea?
Sometimes I have a little bit, and then typically I just start, and then I see what starts to come out of the canvas. It's pretty.
And do you typically paint, do you paint seascapes? What are you painting?
No, it's Pollock. My kids call it splatter paint, but
so it's contemporary art. Yeah. Awesome. I want to see it.
Yeah. I'll show you some on my phone here afterwards. Yeah. But I've got to get one. I can get into Craig Hall's, one of his projects one day.
I'll bring it up when I talk to him.
Next week.
I got him next week.
It's price right, Craig. I promise.
Well, give me one. I'll hang it in one of our buildings.
Right, we'll do that.
Okay, so you talked about reading a couple books. if you were going to recommend 2 books, what would you recommend?
Yeah, Stillness is the Key. Ryan Holiday is an incredible read if you're in the middle of the storm. I'm rereading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius right now, which is another just, if you're, as you think about 2,000-year-old principles of life, as you think that times are tough right now, I think those are good. The book I read last weekend was 1776 on George Washington and our country, and I think that's a great must read for all of us. But you talked about the grit and determination of what our leaders went through to just get this country founded.
Right.
And I hadn't read that book before.
Is it an easy read?
Oh, it's a great Audible over 9 hours. And then I just do it at 2 speeds. So it took about 4.5, but fantastic read on the grit of what George Washington and everybody went through to get this country founded. I think that's just a must. So I give you 3.
Perfect. Okay. So career's over. What's the most important thing that you hope that you've accomplished?
Yeah, I think for me, it's have I made a positive impact in my family's life and my community. I think the relationships that you build, I kind of boil it down to 2 things. So it's the memories you create and the positive impact that you make. And so when you're laying there, I think that's all you take with you is those memories. And so every year, for my wife and I don't need anything. So for the last 10 years on Shutterfly, I make a photo album of the year. So I capture photos and
That's so cool.
And I write little notes in there and I have them printed, and I joke with my kids someday they'll be flipping that book through with me, but it helps me capture the year. And so I'm halfway through this year, 2/3 through this year's book, and I get up early in the morning and I have a couple photos of the kids or something funny they said, I'd throw it into the book. But those are the memories. And then I think to the impact, and whether it's the people and the one student, the one person you stood up and talked to, and if you gave an entrepreneurial pitch one day, maybe the next Steve Jobs is sitting out there in the audience inspired to build the next great company. So I hope that whether it's my kids or my family or the employees I have or the other entrepreneurs or people I've met, that hopefully I've been a positive inspiration and help them do something, is how I would think about it.
I think I like you so much because we think a lot alike, but like for me, as I've gotten older, it really is about just doing it right. And when I go in the box, I want to make sure somehow I've made it a little better, right? And not for me to be rewarded, but just so that quietly I've done something to help people or the city or whatever it is, right? And what I like about, as you and I have gotten to really know each other, is you're such a solid, genuine person. And I will tell you, Dallas is lucky to have you, and I really appreciate you taking the time today. And I'm looking forward to getting to even know you better.
Awesome. Thanks, Bill. This has been great. It's been great getting to know you even better, and also just being inspired by what you're doing. So I appreciate everything.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks.